Orange and Blue Sports Network, the official broadcast provider of Florida Gators club hockey. All season long, OBSN will have you covered both on and off the ice. This is Swamp Slapshot with Jamie Goldman and Rob Russo on the Orange and Blue Sports Network.
Welcome into another episode of Swamp Slapshot. I'm Jamie Goldman alongside Rob Russo. Our player guest today is a special one. Captain of the team, president of the club, Matthew Brkljacic. How you doing today?
Doing really good. Excited, and I think we're going to have a good time today.
Yeah, we're glad to have you here. Glad to have you. So we'll kind of start with kind of your role as the president. So this is your second year as the president of the club. It's your second year, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so kind of tell us about how you got the role, the process, what like the elections kind of go like, and also what it's like to be the president of this program.
Yeah, so I'll start us off by what the process looks like for kind of becoming president. It's not something you can just jump into. You need to get acclimated to the situation and everything that goes on day to day. It really is a big task that you're taking on. So when I first got here, just playing my freshman year out, and then my sophomore year, I got interested in kind of getting in behind the scenes of what's going on because it's pretty fascinating, all the work that we do. And sophomore year, I took on the VP role, which was a good segue into becoming president. I actually live with the past president, Connor Nicholson, so on top of doing my vice president responsibilities, I could see what he was doing on a day-to-day basis, which really helped. Come election time, had a good pitch, had a lot of good ideas. We've been able to execute most of them, still working on a couple of them. I won the election, and it's been a great experience ever since. And as for the day-to-day roles of what I'm doing, it could be anything. And my phone, I wake up to about 5 or 6 texts, and it prolongs throughout the day. It really comes down to if we have games that weekend, that's where we really get going and the gears are really rolling. But yeah, no, you're working with other GMs across the league because you got to make a schedule. And we have a hurricane coming this weekend, so we've been working with the University of Tampa to try and get those rescheduled because Tampa's getting hit really pretty hard, so we're going to reschedule those games. But working with GMs, making a schedule, laying out a budget. We probably have the biggest budget for a club sport on campus, so we got to make sure we're working tight on that, making sure money's going to the right spots. And then, you're working with the coaching staff, and as it pertains to the university, you also got regulations, right? Mm-hmm. And that stems from the University of Florida, the University Athletic Association. So making sure that everybody's happy, especially the university, because they're the ones that are very generous with what they give us to be able to play such a very expensive sport at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. So it's honestly exciting. It's a new obstacle every day, but that keeps the role kind of just overall, really exciting. So
you said that, on game weeks, it looks a little bit different than without game weeks. Obviously, this one's completely different because of the hurricane and everything like that. But on a normal game week, what kind of, you said the gears are turning, all that stuff. What does that really mean? What are you doing on a week of a game leading up to game day? Yeah,
so the game of a week, and like I said, it really depends, right? So last weekend, we played Georgia, and we had the fan buzz for our national championship banner ceremony. So you have a medical staff that needs to make sure that they're there, they know what they're doing, where AED equipment is and all that. So you have to make sure they're situated and all organized. As for our media team, photographers, videographers, graphic designers, you got to make sure that they got rides to the game because we play in jacks, and making sure that all gets organized or somebody's got hands on top of that. They're communicating with their coach, just reminding them, hey, game times, here's the uniforms we're wearing. If you guys need anything, I'm your contact. And then, obviously, players in the team, right? They're curious, when do we need to be at the game? What are we wearing? All that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of coordination and just making sure everything's set up in place. And obviously, during a game week, it starts to pick up during that time. Right. But on the off times that we don't have games like these upcoming weeks, it's going to be a lot of catch-up and really changing the focus. Now we have a couple games under our belt. Where do we see ourselves going from here? And let's start putting plans in place to make sure we can execute those in the future. I'll give you one. We play Tennessee in 2 weeks, right? We got both teams going, D1 and D3. Okay. So that's coordinating a bus. That's finding hotels on a football weekend where we play Tennessee.
Yeah, it's probably gonna
be tough. There ain't nothing in Knoxville that's going to be under $500 a room. So you really got to be strategic with where you're staying and making sure that there's enough rooms for both teams. We got 40 guys and 4 coaches and photographers, videographers going to be there. So it's a lot of planning and making sure that you're putting the right stuff in place so that can be properly executed.
Wow, a lot going on there.
Yeah, it's exciting.
You guys going to the game when you're in Knoxville?
Some of us do, yeah.
Okay.
Tickets aren't too bad.
Okay.
Right,
And the football team.
That should be fun. Hopefully we can pull an upset off
That
there.
would be nice, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean that's just like it's super interesting role, and like there's a lot of just in-depth stuff that you're doing behind the scenes. You talked about the fan bus that this weekend for the championship banner. Obviously, didn't really go your way on the ice, but off the ice you had a lot of engagement. With the fan bus coming, having a lot of excitement, buzz around the club right now. Probably the most that you've had in your time. So how has that been just this weekend? And then we'll kind of get into overall as you've seen the club grow.
The growth has been phenomenal, right? And that's from hard work from all 14 people on our executive board. They're working day in and day out to get us to where we're at. It's been exponential, right? And I think it helps that there is no D1 hockey team on this campus. I would say that's probably going to come in like at least a decade where kind of hockey starts coming to the South. It's bound to happen. It's growing so fast. But because that there is no D1 team, we can kind of fill that void. And that allows us this untapped growth relative to any other club. And no club's growing as fast as we are. And we're starting to kind of surpass some of the D1 sports on campus. Because you know what? It's a unique sport, right? Hockey in the South, we have a team. People are like, wow. And then they get really hooked on it. So we're like, let's try a fan bus here and see if it works. Never done it before. I think a couple of club hockey teams have done it. So we wanted to take a crack at it. And, we went phenomenal. We had 50-plus kids students that wanted to come, watch us play a club hockey game in Jacksonville. And just a great experience because it shows, like, the accumulation of all the work that we've put in, all the growth and success that we've had over the last couple of years. And kind of to see it blossom there was something special.
Yeah. So you kind of talked about, like, you're talking to other GMs, you're scheduling hotels, you're doing buses, you got this, you got that. Is it just falling on you, or you kind of have a team of guys that kind of help you with it? What is that like? It can't just all fall on you.
No. So in the past, it used to be kind of like the president's main responsibility was to kind of do all these things, right? It's a lot, and I want to make sure that there's guys on the team that can get these experiences because it gives you a lot of intangible skills, right? Working on a team, leadership qualities. So what I've made, one of my goals is to really expand the executive board for people that were interested, and we had a ton of guys that really wanted to get their hands on and help the club as much as they could. So that's kind of what I put into effect was let's blow it up, right? So you come in, I think there's 6 or 7 people on the executive board. I wanted to fully expand that so that if somebody wanted to help out, they could help out and start gaining those off-the-ice skills. Because we are students at a university. There's a long-term focus here, and it's not just playing hockey. Sure, winning's great. Winning national championships is awesome.
Yes,
that's a priority as well. But there's also like a long-term mindset here, right? We want to make sure that guys can have those opportunities. So my job now is overseeing all of this, right? And kind of sending reminders, offering assistance where I can, because I've had to do all this stuff during my 1 year previously as a president, but also as my role as vice president, seeing all this go down. So I have experience with what's going on, and if guys need help, I can help them, but it's also kind of sharing the responsibility, putting trust in other guys that they can do this effectively, and they've done a great job so far.
Right, and like, have you seen some of these guys that you're talking about, like, kind of step up into their roles? And you're a senior, and so you want this club to continue to thrive and continue to grow after you're gone. How have they shown that they're ready to take over the reins after you're ready to go?
Yeah, no, it means a lot to them, and I've seen, like, when I first came in, it was a little bit difficult to make people like want to put in all this extra work because you don't have to, right? Being a player, traveling to Jacksonville all the time, like, that's just such a big commitment on top of your classwork. So it's a little bit difficult, but the new group that's came in, they've been phenomenal. Like sophomores, freshmen, even like we have a lot of guys or juniors that are on the executive board, but it's the sophomores and the freshmen that are really like, I want my hands on something. I want to help out as much as I can because being on this team and the amount of effort you put in truly takes so much work that it really becomes part of you, right? And you almost feel a sense of ownership that you want to see the club thrive in the future. So they've just been phenomenal stepping into all these roles. Like, I've been able to create so many different ones that I didn't before, which has allowed us to like go through with this. The fan bus, for instance, we had a guy that we kind of created a role to kind of handle this whole situation, and future ones of just reaching out to students, right? How can we increase our contact with them? That's a role in itself and can help us a lot. And because he had that role, he was able to step into it and really take that on and execute the fan bus. So it's little things like that.
Yeah, and then we talked with Jackson a little bit about social media outreach and how important that is. You guys just reached 15,000 followers on Instagram. Like, that's huge. Like, that is no joke, right? And like, I think that it really just can't go understated, like how important, you talked about how important is getting that media team out there. Obviously, we're covering the game, broadcasting the game, and we're getting a few thousand views every time that we're live covering. So, I mean, that's just such an important aspect of getting eyes on the game. And then, that's more revenue for you guys, more money going back into the club, and then, continuing up and up that ladder.
Yeah, no, we place a really big... at least our marketing team, right? We have two guys that kind of run it, Jackson Choi, as you mentioned, Nicholas Ho, and one of the big things we put importance on is who we're putting in these roles, right? We wouldn't pick anybody else to do a broadcast except for you guys because of the phenomenal work that you guys do. And as I've told you, so many compliments about just like the professionalism of how it looks, right? It looks like we are a professional team. We look like we're a D1 program with what you guys do. So we want to make sure like what we're putting out there, and including like our photographers, our videographers, we have to go through a hiring process, right? Because we get 50, 60 applicants and there's not a lot of roles. So it's really blowing up, which gives us the opportunity so that we can put the best people in those roles so that we can put our best foot forward to the public. And it really has gone a long way.
Right. And I mean, kind of about that expansion of the club, I mean, you got 50, 60 photographers and people and trying to fill those roles. Then on the ice, we talked to some other players. You had like over 90 guys just try out to be on the team to begin with. I mean, you talk about hockey exploding in the South. I mean, you have guys from all over the place. You're not from here either.
No.
So how is it seeing all those people get out there on the ice, want to put the Gator on their chest?
No, it's great. When I first got here, it was like one team and barely having that team, and then it quickly grew. We kind of expanded to two teams, and then that two team was slowly growing, and then this season we have two full teams, full roster, 24, 25 guys on them, and we have a bunch of guys that love the game so much that are just practicing, right? Because that's how much they love it, not playing games. So maybe something in the future that we're considering is adding another team because of how much it's growing. A third team because of all these guys, right? So it really is blowing up. And for us to have 3 hockey teams on this campus, 2, let alone, is massive. Yeah. But to go to 3 is definitely a possibility because you're right. There was like 70, 80, 90 guys at these evaluations. And, it's shocking to see. And at the end of the day, it is a little bit more work on your plate. But you're giving that opportunity to these guys that they can continue to play what they're passionate about, right? And they want to play hockey, and your job is to give them that opportunity in the best way that you can, right? And that's what we're trying to do.
Right. So let's kind of take a step outside the front office right now. And so we kind of talked a little bit about you're not from here, you're from Canada. So how did you end up here at the University of Florida coming from, Canada?
Yeah. So I grew up in Canada first half of my life, right? I got nothing bad to say. I loved it. I grew up in Windsor, Ontario, so huge hockey culture there. You got an OHL team there, and I remember growing up going to those OHL games, and they were packed houses. You had some guys like Taylor Hall in the mix, and just great players, right? So I was kind of in the prime Windsor hockey era, and then my dad's job, actually, he would work in Detroit because we're kind of neighboring cities, and the office ended up moving him out to Tampa. So because of that, my immediate family comes. Obviously, the rest of my family, extended, all stays in Canada. So that's obviously a little bit of an issue that you got to kind of work through. But whole family, my immediate family in Tampa. Went to high school for a little bit in Tampa, and then obviously it's the University of Florida, right? We're an academic weapons school out here. It's on the radar. My dad went there. It's kind of passed down thing. So it's the school I wanted to go to. Kind of put in some extra work in high school to get to this point. But I'm very happy that I'm here. And it's, I'm sure as you guys would say, it's been an amazing experience.
For sure. So the rink is closed. You got no work. You got no school. What is Matthew Brkljacic doing on a day off? What are your hobbies? What do you like to do when hockey's not going on, when school's not going on?
That's a good question.
I know you're so busy with it all. It's probably hard to find even that time. But if there was such a time, what would you be doing?
If there is such a time, outside of catching up on schoolwork and my classes, I'm trying to maintain a GPA here as well.
Of course.
It's probably hanging out with my roommates, just hanging out with some friends that are outside of hockey. And, whether that's just playing Xbox and relaxing, watching TV, nothing crazy. Maybe hitting them Midtown after you play some FIFA.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But no, it's really like it's got to be relaxing, right? If I can get to the gym, it'll be the gym, right? Just kind of stay in as much shape as I can with all this other stuff going on. But I try and keep it as relaxing as possible to kind of ease the stress, as you guys know, like there's a lot going on. So let's try and bring it down a couple notches when I can, so that when it raises back up to here, I'm ready to kind of bring that energy and get it back up to where it needs to be.
Yeah,
nice.
Definitely.
Yeah. So I mean, we gotta talk about the team, on the ice, the on ice product. Guys struggled this weekend against Georgia for sure. That first game, I think you guys came out and looked a lot sharper in that second game. I wanted to just kind of get your thoughts on the adjustments you made. I thought the power play looked a lot better. Special teams looked a lot better in that second game. You don't have Tampa this weekend. You were going to. That's a really strong team. Now they'll be kind of later on down the schedule, but you still got some really steep competition coming up on the D1 level throughout the rest of this season. So, how are you going to take this? Was this a learning experience for you guys this weekend? Your first game on the D1 level against a D1 opponent?
A little bit of a learning experience, but I'd say this. I get a call after our game, right? We lose 7-1 or 6-1, and I got a call from a Gator alum. His name's Lewis. He's big in the hockey community, right? Great guy. And he's like, "Are you worried about being in D1 after that?" And I'm like, "Absolutely not." He's like, "Why?" And I said, "At this point last season, we went into UCF and lost to them 10-4. We ended up after that game, a couple later, we go on a 12-game win streak, and it's because we suffer the issue that we're so far, we can't practice as much, so it takes a little bit of extra time for us, right, to kind of figure out the logistics. What are our systems? What's our power? We just figured out our power play in the second game against Georgia, right? We had no power play goals before that, and then we get 3, right? Yeah. So we're a work in progress, and once it gets clicking, it's not stopping us from there, right? 13-game win streak. We sweep nationals, probably with the greatest goals against record that they've ever seen. Just pounded teams nonstop. Go to the SEC tournament where we're playing D1 teams. We're playing Georgia's, we're playing Auburn's, we're playing South Carolina's. Beat all of them. We come into this year, unfortunately, that we face the slow start of kind of getting our feet wet, figuring out what works and what doesn't work. But once that starts clicking, it's just a matter of time, right?
You told you got a whole bunch of freshmen on the roster as well, some new guys. So, and I think that was kind of a thing that everyone else kind of brought up as well. I mean, it is hard to get out to Jacksonville. Ice time is expensive for practices and things like that. And obviously, you know all about that, being the president and things like that. But I think that just being able to see the improvement from game 1 to game 2 in that set against Georgia just shows how quick this group is going to start clicking together. That power play looked really sharp. Yeah, no, we're figuring things out, and in the power play, right? We didn't like what we were seeing, right? We tried to use something from last year, and there's so many new guys. One of those was that I'm in my senior year now. I'm not at the rate that I was my freshman and sophomore year. So the first thing was I went up to the coach, and obviously I have a lot of influence on some of the stuff that gets done. And I said, "You are completely fine to take me off this first unit. There are 5 other guys that are better than me that should be on this." Wow. And we kind of together sat down and made what I've been calling the dream team of offense. And I kept calling them that, and you saw the result, right? And then those guys have chemistry, they have skill, they got the right mind to be on the power play, and once they clicked, and I think it just took them 1 power play, 3 goals, right? So that's just one of those things where we got to see what we have and work on that so that we can execute that power play like we wanted to, and it worked out in the end. Yeah, there you go. Keegan Lampinen on the on defense got 4 forwards out. I like that. I like the aggressive push there, and then that kind of physical second power play unit as well, kind of bringing the boom there. Thunder and Lightning. We said on the
that's what we've been calling you guys, Thunder and Lightning.
And Georgia's, they're a good team. They're one of those teams that they do take this very seriously, and it pays off for them. They're a very systems heavy team. You're not going to see any Wayne Gretzky's on their team, but you're going to see a solid group of kind of just following what they have done. We knew that coming in. It's just when you're playing a team that's doing phenomenal on systems and you have a team that's still working out the kinks in their systems, there's going to be a gap there. And I promise you, come Savannah Classic, it's going to be a different style game.
Yeah, I love that. Absolutely. I love that. And I love the leadership you took, kind of being able to acknowledge take me off the power play. That's awesome. We love to see that. And it kind of speaks to the buy-in of you and the whole team, really, just being able to, in that one game, flip the script and kind of come out in that second game against Georgia. I know you still didn't get the win, but you kind of like we talked about, you guys looked a lot better. You looked a lot sharper. So kind of really speaks to just the buy-in of the whole team.
Yeah, and it's seeing that game, right? You can look at the first game and find issues, right? But the real thing for us was like rewatching that second game and figuring out, okay, now that we've kind of gotten acclimated to them, where we still seeing some issues, and that opened up some areas that we got to work on, and that's all we worked on last night at practice. So that was big, and hopefully we can start fixing some of those adjustments for, unfortunately, not Tampa, because that's canceled because of the hurricane, but when we go play Tennessee, which is going to be another big D1 game.
Yeah, and it kind of, maybe a little bit of a blessing in disguise, gives you guys a couple more weeks to work on those systems, work out those kinks, and be ready to roll for Tennessee.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So catch us in Tennessee. The Gators play Tennessee October 11th and 13th. Football game sandwiched in between there on the 12th. Then we'll be back home against South Carolina the following weekend. I think that's going to wrap this one up for this episode of Swamp Slapshot. We want to thank Brkljacic for coming out and talking to us today. We really appreciate it. And that's going to do it. So follow us on OBSN Gators on all platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcast, as well as Instagram and Twitter. And catch us next time on the Swamp Slapshot. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks.
Thank you.